It's not something I want to leave. I don't want to leave working in domestic violence. I think it's a lot of work still to be done.
Yeah.
But I like some other things in my life, like
Yeah.
art. Maybe a little bit of lawyer work in there.
Yeah.
Am I enough? And what does that mean? What is confidence? What does that mean? I see myself as quite privileged. Privileged to have the opportunities to listen to other people's stories. There's a lot of community out there in different roles that are making a big difference, and it can only get better.
Yeah.
Will it ever stop? I don't know. Work with what you can control. What you cannot control, leave for somebody else. You know, you can relate to other people that have had similar instances. And the same with children. They know, they suss you out straight away. As soon as you walk in the room, that's it, they're done. So we are moving forward positively to change the world. Oh, if only. You're born perfection in everything. You know everything. And yet you start learning things and influenced by other things, and you just start getting older and heavier. And you need to get some of that back. Get some fluffy back.
You know, when you were a kid, like what did you want to do, I guess, and like what did you imagine yourself doing when you were older?
I wanted to be someone that was in power and can make changes, but you know, there was another part of me that really liked art, so I was a little bit confused about that. And you've actually just made me remember something. When I was in Chile and we were about to leave, we went to primary school that I was at, so we were having like a leaving party. I remember, you know, bullet holes in the concrete of the school and things like that. You know, there was a lot of turmoil. But we were having this party, and my hair was white then. And as a gift, we got given a doll. And I got given the doll that had the blonde hair, you know, the blue eyes. I was really upset because I really wanted the brown doll with the curly black hair, but it was very much, no, you have this one because you look like that, and you have this one. And so that was at 6 years old that I started kind of thinking, I don't like what's going on here.
So you were in Chile when did you leave, I guess, to New Zealand?
74? It would have been around 74, so it was just after the military coup. So my father was part of a political party then that pretty much when the military took over, there were lots of people that ended up in the stadiums, killed, shot, tortured, those kind of things. And they came looking for my father, but he left. So I was left in South America with my mother and 2 younger brothers and 2 younger sisters. But all I can remember is leaving in a bus with the 6 of us, and the curtains, you know, were drawn in the bus. I remember sneaking a peek through the window, and all I could see was the steep downfall. We were up some mountains, and we ended up. To me, the image I've got is a cave, a great big cave where the buses would all arrive and they would meet us, and we went into Peru for about 9 months.
Oh wow, okay.
And then we were given political asylum my father chose the UK. It was just total change of lifestyle, really. A lot of people couldn't handle it. They had to go back or move somewhere else. They had lots of mental health issues because of living in one country and then transform that into a different sort of culture and be with different people, not knowing the English language, things like that. It was pretty horrible. Yeah,
wow. Yeah. Do you think like all of that kind of shaped, because you know how you said in the beginning that you wanted to sort of like contribute or help?
Yeah.
Did that kind of shape?
Yeah.
That?
Yeah, and looking back, it's all shapes the way that I think now and what I'd like to do now. You know, somebody asked me yesterday, they said, well, how long have you been doing social work? And I said, well, I'm not a social worker. But well, how long? I said, forever. Because I can link it back to other parts of my life. When I left London and I came here, so that would have been 30 years ago, and started afresh with basically a handbag. That's what I had. So I re-educated myself. I went to Whitecliffe and continued with my art. And then I went to...
You did photography at
Whitecliffe?
Yeah,
a little bit of photography. It was more fine arts and graphics. A little bit of photography, but then, you know, I went into teaching secondary school kids, but just going mainstream wasn't good enough for me. I wanted to do Steiner education, so I went through Steiner for
Yeah.
about 6 years, and I taught digital photography and darkroom photography.
Yeah. So how did they transition from that into family violence and all the work you're doing now?
In between study at Whitecliffe and in between a teacher training and working as a teacher, I also did counselling training. I just wanted, I've always had this theory that you shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket. You should have lots of things, and then you can always do something else. So it was just me and the kids. I had time. I wanted to see how I could best use my time, and I'm still quite curious about time and how we spend time. So I started doing drug and alcohol counselling, and at the same time I was doing narrative therapies counselling, so I gave one up for the other one. Narrative was different. It was brought about by a different group of people that looked at things in a more creative manner, and you could take different avenues for that. And I found that fitted better with the work that I was doing with children.
Yeah.
So while I was doing all those trainings and doing different things, so I had a supervisor, and she was a clinical advisor for Shine. And she wanted me to come on board and start doing work with children.
Ah, so that's how
it started. So what I did for about, sometimes I forget, 10, 12 years, I just did contract work. So it was after school and at weekends, which meant that I could still do 9-to-5 jobs somewhere else, but develop a career in something.
Do you mostly work with kids, or?
Mostly, it has been children most of my life, but working with children, you have to work with a parent, and it's been mainly women.
Yes.
But a lot of men as well, but mainly women that I've had to work with.
Yeah.
So it's more about education, empowering. I like to see it more as empowering, empowering a father or a mother or a child to actually be able to move forward somehow.
Yeah. If families undergone domestic violence, like what are the services available to them out there?
You have all the main ones. You have things like support with financial assistance, such as wins or grants from other places that have funds. A lot of people don't know how to get hold of funding to support them with certain things for the children. So we can help with that. Help with mental health. So if there's anything that could be perceived as mental health, we don't do those kind of things. We don't make those kind of evaluations, but we have other people that do that. So we're basically bringing people together from other agencies to be able to support that family, safety-wise, security, things like that. That's quite diverse as well. All the things that everybody would like.
You've been working in 12 years. Has anything kind of drastically changed or improved or actually got worse maybe?
I wouldn't say worse, and I wouldn't say dramatic changes either. It depends who you talk to. There could be people that have been in this industry for a long time, and you talk to them and something that they've been really passionate about hasn't shifted as quickly as they would like. So then that's looked at it from that perspective. I'm thinking in regards to, say, strangulation policy that came through. That was a huge achievement, and that was in the pipeworks for a lot of years. People that probably don't even work in the sector anymore. So a lot of women experience strangulation or choking, so anything that stops their breathing. So it could be through here, and there wasn't actually a policy that could you could say, well, actually I was strangled, and there could be a prosecution through that. There is now. So pretty much as soon as that policy came through and it was legislation, it was like bam, there was prosecutions instantly. And working with a lot of our clients, it's always we've got wonderful lawyers that work with us, but sometimes we need specific little things that maybe a family lawyer can't do, and there needs to be immigration, and then trying to find one that can do this specific thing. It's very long-winded sometimes, and for me, not quick enough. I want to do it right now for my clients. So I decided that I'm going to go and study for another year or two, and I'm going to go with the legal executive training, so I can still do that while I'm working. It's not quite the lawyer or quite the judge, but it's going in that direction. To be able to say, well, I actually studied this and I know this, and this is where you can go, rather than have to search for that work for our clients. That is something I've always wanted.
how do you find like taking care of yourself, of your own state, or is it quite challenging for people in general in this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Often people will say to me, "Oh, that's so sad, that's so bad," and I went, "No, it's not." I've never seen it as something that's really, some stories, yes, are heartbreaking and it's like, what can I do with this? But in general, it's a really good buzz because you're doing things that are helpful and seem to be helpful. So it moves forward. So I see it as a plus. But when I finish work, I take this off, and usually there's some music in the car, very loud music. And I try to stop off and do something else. So I'm either doing some art somewhere or I'm going to the gym, but I always do something else before I go home. And I was made aware of that, 20 odd years ago. Make sure, because I wanted to study in this field, but I didn't want to go home to my children with these things that I was working with. And that was my primary question when I started studying this area. What can I do so I don't take it home?
Working with kids and with their parents
Yeah.
that are in quite tough situations, is there anything that you kind of learned from, or still learning from them that,
Always. I remember everyone that I've seen. I've lost count of how many children I've seen. I remember them all. And I think, the best part of it all is that everyone has something unique to offer, and everyone, has a low point at some point in their life, or many low points, but there are many high points as well. I remember meeting a little girl for the very first time, and her mother was a lawyer, I think, but not here in New Zealand, in another country. And this little girl spoke to me, but she found it very difficult to talk. So I found that she talked only by whispering. And it just comes about. It's not something that I planned. So it's like, how am I going to get her to talk to me? It's like I'm going to walk out of here and nothing's going to be done. So I whispered something, and that was it, and she started whispering into me, and I would whisper back. And that's how we developed that relationship. And then she started talking. And, she had some really sad stories to tell. But that's where she found space to do it. And because I was able to do that with her, she shared those stories with me. Another little boy hid behind, I still see it plain, it's so plain, this was years and years ago, hid behind a mattress. So I asked him where he wanted to talk, and he said in his bedroom, and he hid behind the mattress, and that's the only way he would be able to talk about the things he wanted to talk about, which was very sad yet again. Some kids will draw, and they won't say very much, but the drawings tell me exactly what's going on. And then that gives me the space to be able to converse with them in a manner that they can speak. So it's about them sharing stories that are personal to them, their journeys, and it's about me finding a way to be able to talk to them at the level that they're at.
Yeah. Of domestic violence as a problem, like if we look at it as just a, nationwide, worldwide, whatever, like what from your perspective, what can we, or how can we, maybe what shift as a society to...
What I found when I started looking at all these things, that it was just too big, far too big. And I thought, well, can one person do all of this? No. Can one person do this? No. Maybe with some support. Can one person do this? Yes. But only with support. We can't do this work alone. I alone can't change something within this field on my own. You can't either, neither can you. We need that support. We need community support. We need people in other positions that can make other changes. Well, there's a lot of things that I just can't do. And I found that was really overwhelming. So I really had to go like this. Go, what can I do? And what I'm doing is enough. Holding people accountable for their behaviour, and I mean that in a really broad spectrum, it's a huge thing. I find that women here in New Zealand, and children are just the innocent part of it, are held accountable for somebody else's behaviour. And that's wrong. I would like to see, and I think there's huge aspirations out there for agencies to be working with the whole family, whatever that family looks like. And I think when you've got the buy-in of the whole family to make some positive changes, then you're making huge social changes. You're looking at behavioural things, you're looking at the way that you grew up, your values, your ideas, you're looking at the impact of economy, you're looking at financial impact, you're looking at drugs and alcohol, you're looking at mental health. There's so many things that one group of people or even one person cannot make a change. So we all need to have the same buy-in to be able to make those changes. I think that's the only way that I can pretty much cope with the work that I do. So that's where I am now. And now I've got another big block that I'm kind of putting together and moving forward with that.
What is that block?
Okay. So I've made a decision. I've never had an exhibition here in New Zealand, only through art school. So I want to have an exhibition February next year. And all the work that I'm going to do, it's got 3 categories. It's informed through the work that I do with children and women in domestic violence. And pretty much if you look at that, my whole life. And that's what's going into that. So I've got some woodwork pieces, some metal work, and the other one is jewellery. So the last 2 years I've spent after work time learning jewellery and learning how to weld.
Cool.
And I often think about you because I thought when I started doing welding, it was just all men. All men. And they all wanted to help, which was great. I learned heaps. In the jewellery, all women, apart from a couple of men. So that actually really kind of stuck out there again. I thought, right, I'm going to put all of this together. With the exhibition, I also want it to come from a perspective for the company that I work for. And I want to have an element of charity with it as well. So it kind of supports the work that I do or continue to do or that others do. But then develop my own sort of product lines from that and make this company work.
That's so exciting.
It is exciting.
Cool.